Broadcasting live from the IRSMedic studios, it's Parental Advisory. We are live on Parental Advisory. My name is Claudine. I'm here with Anthony. And today, Anthony, we're talking about tax brackets.
Tax brackets, so much fun.
Yes.
So much fun to talk about. I want to talk about something else first.
Can we make bets on the tax brackets?
Tax brackets. They're so much fun. Pick your own tax brackets. They're so much fun. I want to, and if my mom is listening, is I want to give her a warning.
Okay.
Because I want to bring her into the subject today. And it's really that when I was growing up, there are swears, you can kind of get away with saying. Some of the ones are surprising. And just like my son, my 5-year-old, some of the things the swears that he uses, the ones like he's in the office, he comes to the office after school. So he hears everything. He hears every string of, there's a lot of people calling the IRS. He knows the attorney's here. He overhears them. So every string of thing he ever hears. But that's not what he thinks the best swear is. The best swear, according to him, and this was the inspiration for a little Halloween decoration. I'll show you right here. Hang on a second.
Okay. The best swear, according to Anthony's 5-year-old son. Oh.
You see that? Chen, can you zoom in on that so people can get a really good... to make sure that that's it. And the words are, and those listening to audio only... A great way to show my used or my dirty clothes over there and go to the gym. Now you see that right there.
Yes.
Oh, you know what? That's a little too close to me. I shouldn't associate myself with this. Whoa. So P-O-O-P, poop.
Poop. Are we going to have to bleep that?
I don't think so. No, that is the best swear. According to my 5-year-old Ulysses, and he gets a little poop. It's the greatest. It's the most hilarious one, and it is actually really fun. And when I had this out, we were doing some Halloween. We were doing some trick or treating. This is the one people really respond to. That's really it actually. So I mean, maybe there is something to it. I'm like, well, actually, it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
And poop. So anyway, so that's that. Now the one thing that I was not allowed to say.
You could say poop.
Oh, poop, no problem.
Okay.
In front of my mother, that's really why I'm saying it.
Yeah.
And I don't have to get any warning, if she's listening, watching. The one that she didn't like, shut up.
That's surprising.
You don't say shut up. Yeah, I know. She just got out of control. Shut up. And I still have it. It's still one that's still with me. Hey, don't say shut up. You can say... blah, 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 blah. And I'll say that. But I won't say you won't hear me say shut up that much unless I'm really...
That's good to know.
Yeah, whoa, shut up, yo.
If I hear that, I'm walking out of the room.
Well, this is what I'm going to ask myself.
Okay.
This is why I want to... This is why I went through this whole thing. Also, to get a poop out there. Because, I mean...
It's funny no matter how old you are.
Right? It is. But sometimes I ask myself, Anthony, why don't you just shut up?
I think a lot of people.
I do.
Do you want me to call Erica and get her opinion?
Yeah, she does. A lot of people do say, why don't you just shut up? And one of the things I talk about is how the tax code works. And as a tax attorney, I should just shut up about this whole stupid thing and let it go and let it continue and let it go. I have so much to gain by the status quo and the more that people want out there. But I don't.
You could potentially make a lot of money. Because
there's so
the
much
tax
more.
code is so confusing and people don't get it.
I do make a lot of money.
You can make more if you just shut up.
If I just shut up and say, here, this is, you guys, it's about fairness. The tax code is about fairness.
And justice.
And justice. And fairness and justice. Yes. And meanwhile, I don't shut up. I actually go and get really mad and angry when people talk about how wonderful socialism is and how great the tax code is. I actually get really, really angry. And I wanted to know what causes that. Why would I act against my self-interest? Okay. I'm going to answer it for you.
Okay.
Now, when you die,
okay,
you could just be rotting in there in the ground.
Could be.
Okay. But there is an alternative. There could be something after.
Yes.
Okay, we really can't rule that out.
No.
Now, what if the something after is you go to a place where there's people who were born before you, and some of the people you think of as heroes.
Like heaven?
Like heaven, there you go, right. Like that.
Yeah.
Like that, yeah. So there's people like you really like, oh man, you were my inspiration. Like I read, you sacrificed yourself. You put your own personal interest behind the good of people. You really sacrificed. You put everything at risk for the betterment of a great country. You're talking about people like George Washington, who was a bad mofo.
Yep.
I mean, he was bad. Benjamin Franklin, who is the greatest of all time. I mean, he was brilliant, and he had a lot of fun. I'm a brilliant guy. Mm-hmm. So, you're talking about guys like that, and John Adams, really, smart guy. He also kind of played defense at both sides. And then at one point he goes, okay, that's it. I've had enough.
Yep.
You talk about guys like that, founders of this country. And then I show up there and I want to be at their table, and they're going to say, well, dude,
I can just see you walking over with a beer like,
hey,
can I
guys
sit at the cool table?
Hey, guys, can I have a seat? They're going to say, nah, man, we created a country that was based on liberty and, trying to have a government with control. And you're really somebody who exploited the fact that government controls everything for your own personal gain. So, why don't you go over there? You're not welcome. So that's really...
Why don't you go sit with John Lennon?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can imagine how much fun that would be. Hey, any wives around here to beat? Hey, I have a really annoying song. Imagine heaven. No, don't imagine no heaven. Oh, that's a lot of fun. Wait, are we here? No. Oh, God. Oh, look at that. Look at that wife. Let's go beat her.
It's going to be John Lennon, Mother Teresa.
I don't know if I hate her. I know I hate John Lennon.
No. Who am I thinking? Albert Einstein. Rumor is he was an a-hole.
Yeah, but I don't think I hate him.
No.
I hate the people who worship him.
Yes.
They're like, oh my God, if Albert Einstein had said it, it's genius. He knew something about physics that most of it's in dispute. Yeah. Therefore, what he says on child rearing, oh my God, I have to listen to him. Wow, I want to know everything.
I'd be such a jerk in heaven. Anyway.
John Lennon, I don't think he's going to be there because it's like, he'll be there, right? He'll be at the table like, hey, yeah, that wife right there, let's go cold cocker. Like, no, not allowed,
She's not looking.
She's not looking. Yeah, she'll shut up about it. Perfect target. And if she says anything, it'll just be screams, and we'll just say it's an art performance. It worked out beautifully. Oh, God, a little sidetrack. So that's why I am saying things, and I also think it's just scummy. And I think it's really scummy, a lot of things that go on.
Yep.
That the tax industry works in collusion with the IRS to make it more complicated because they know it's more money in their pocket.
Got it.
And they lobby, and we've talked about this before, and we've talked about how you can work this tax system, like a great way to get rid of your competition is sick the IRS on them. Mm-hmm. And, have them write the tax code in one way, favors your business and screws them over. So, that's really one of the reasons why I want to get the truth out, even though it's really not in my self-interest, or try to do the best I can.
I will not tell you to shut up.
So don't tell me. So you'll, really?
No.
But we could still say, shut up. So we're talking about tax brackets.
Yes.
Eventually, we're going to eventually talk about tax brackets. Well, why do they call it tax brackets and not tax rates?
Well, tax brackets sounds cooler and more fun.
Like you could gamble
on, right? For sure. It's the final four of tax brackets.
Final four, which final four is never really final because there's it's an alliteration. That always bothered me because there's a final one.
Yes.
Final
there's
four,
a winner.
Then there's always a final number of anything. It was
to the final 16.
Final
it's
infinity.
The final 32.
God, which just doesn't rhyme. Final four. Well, how about fabulous four? That was taken by a wife beater. Jeez.
Yeah, tax brackets sounds definitely better than tax rates.
Right,
tax rates is like
tax rates.
It's a tax rate.
Yeah, that sounds scary. Well, and then also your tax brackets, like, well, you're taxed at this rate to this bracket, then your additional income on here, we tax you at this rate, additional rate, so your marginal tax rate, when you throw that marginal word in there, whoa, you're losing people.
Yeah.
I'm
not paying attention anymore.
Right, margins are the part I don't write in. Why are we talking about that? Oh, no, you just lost them.
And the IRS is like, yep,
gotcha.
Eyes glazed over.
So did you know... What was the highest tax rate of 1913? The Federal Income Revenue Act of 1913. Mm-hmm. Do you know what the top tax bracket was?
I don't. I would guess from what I've been reading, 10% seems to be a pretty fair, even.
Okay, you're just wrong.
Oh, okay.
You're just wrong. It's 7%.
Oh,
magical.
Even better.
7. I know, right? It's a lucky number. 7. And so that was the top tax rate of 1913 because it was graduated at 1%.
Okay.
1% for your first, I don't know, whatever. What did they get paid in back then? Bread loaves, ruples, who knows, right? Your first dollar, whatever it was. So then at the top of 7%. But, back then there was ways to avoid taxes, basically. You just didn't pay. Everyone was audited, by the way. Most people didn't know that. Yeah, there was a simple tax return you filed.
Yeah.
But that wasn't what they based your tax on. There were so few taxpayers. They audited everyone. So it's like, sure, we'll just see if your numbers match up. Yeah. We're going to audit you anyway. But, you just don't send in your return.
Yeah.
If you're evading taxes, then they don't know. How do they know what you have? You were the one who told them to come audit me. And that was everyone.
Yep.
So they could because there's very few people who were subject to the income tax. Then, so it's always funny when we have Ted Cruz running for president, and he proposes a 10% flat tax.
Yep.
And that's looked at as somewhat extreme, but the 7% was the top for the richest people back then. So I'm saying, Ted, take a look at my awesome tax. I think it's a much better proposal. So I think the 10% is a good place to start, but it's really not flat because, and also it's a little bit more bold than it was in 1913. So maybe the same things that happened, the same political progression of 10%. Maybe we need 11.
11.4.
11.4.
11.6.
You know what? Someday I bet we can make someone come up with a really crazy number.
Like 39.6?
Yeah, no way.
No way.
No way. No way. I don't think that would ever happen.
No.
And now, totally unrelated, we talked about the Bush tax cuts.
Yes.
The Bush tax cuts lowered the tax rate to the top rate to 35%. Now, you got to love how the media and the powers that be frame a lowering or the lowering of a tax to more than triple what it was originally to a tax cut.
That's a tax cut.
That's a tax cut. That's a very sad. Yeah,
that.
right. Well, if we were at 7, seven goes into, that's 5 times. 7 goes into 35% 5 times. Amazingly, 5 times.
It's a tax cut, Anthony.
Aren't you so lucky? Aren't you so lucky? So now that was the Bush tax cuts.
Okay.
Which, really, 35%? That's a stupid number. What do you think is the best number in the world, Claudine?
39. What do you think?
I'm going to go 39.8.
No, 39.7.
39, 8.5.
39.85. Oh, that's close. Well,
Yeah.
39.6.
Wait, that rings a bell.
39.
I love that number. There's so much to love about that number.
39.6%.
That is so cool. If I could get a hockey jersey, 39.6. That's it. I'm doing it.
Percent.
That's just a magical number. And the reason why Claudine and I are mocking this number, because that is now the current top tax rate of the marginal rate, 39.6. And where the frick does this number come from? And the only thing I could come from is through some sort of bizarre bet like we had in Trading Places. Chen wouldn't know that. That movie was made before him. It was Dan Aykroyd. He was in it.
Yep.
Eddie Murphy.
Fantastic.
Oh my God, it was great. And Mortimer had a bet of whether or not they could make Eddie money, and the bet was over $1. And I would say it's the same thing. The couple IRS employees or Treasury employees, they just sort of had this bet.
They were out for drinks one night.
They're out. Well, then one of them, right? One of them was like, no, 37.25. No.
No, I'm getting 39.6.
No, they're betting that $1, and then there was Mortimer. Here's your $1. 39.6. What a stupid number.
And I feel very naive in that I never looked at the tax brackets for salaries this high because I don't make that much money.
Okay.
I really feel bad for the rich people.
Okay.
That's a lot of money. 40%. 39.6.
39 points. Right. Don't say 40%.
It's like $1.99. It's not $2.
It's pretty nasty.
Yeah.
And, here we started 10%, 15%, 25%, 28%. That's nice because, 29 would have been too much.
Yep.
33%. Couldn't go 33 and a third because you're always going to repeat that. That's sort of the thing. You just can't do that flat third. It doesn't work. 35, which we have, and then the
39.6.
That's awesome. But that's not even what people pay, though.
Oh, okay.
You know how the other day I was talking about the what the IRS collects in revenue? Most of it comes from people. I mean, the bulk of it, 85, 90% of it comes from people.
Yep.
Corporations only pay 10% of all federal revenues. Now, would you believe if I said that the income tax only accounts for about 40% of all money the IRS gets from individuals?
So
would you believe? Right.
Where's the rest come from? We'll find out right after this on Parental Advisory. Tune in tomorrow live at 11 a.m. as we continue to discuss tax brackets. We're going to run through some hypotheticals and find out who's actually paying the most taxes and how to legally protect yourself if you're one of those people. Also, why the richest people in the world seem to be begging for more and more taxes. Here's a hint, they're not actually paying them. Last week on Parental Advisory, we talked about the joke that is the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, Wynn, an American tax protesting hero, and we also discussed the King of Thailand, who may actually have an IRS issue of his own. To listen to past podcasts, visit parentaladvisoryshow.com and click on podcasts on the top of the page. And we're back live on Parental Advisory. Today we're talking about tax brackets. And Anthony, we want to talk about the other tax brackets you should care about.
Right. Some people probably think they already know. They're already thinking like, oh, Anthony, I know what you're talking about. You're going to talk about AMT, Alternative Minimum Tax, which there's 2 tax brackets for that. And that is when the IRS feels that because of your deductions and the way things out, you're not paying enough tax. So here's your other tax. That's actually not what I'm talking about, even though that does exist. What I'm talking about is the fact, and this is what people don't know, and it's usually the big surprise when someone goes out to be self-employed for the first time, they're doing their tax return like, no, this can't be right. It's way too much. Fix this. And then they don't file it because they're like, it's too much. That can't be right.
Yeah.
Because there's a hidden tax. There's a hidden tax that most people don't see or only see a part of it. When you're an employee, you look at your paycheck. You're like, okay, this is my federal income tax. That's usually the biggest, like, okay, that's what's withheld. And then you look down Medicare, Social Security. You're like, okay. Then you see there's a percent, and it's something. And you're like, well, all right, yeah. What is that? What is all that about? Well, that's your that's your employment taxes.
Okay.
And that's your Social Security for disability, which is a rising thing. And then there's an ant on my screen right now. That's I killed him. Poop. What is that? What is that?
I don't know.
Is that a sign? I don't know.
Let's hope
and maybe
not.
there was something he was going to tell me.
Yes.
I'm Benjamin Franklin. Oh no.
Oh, you'll never know.
No. The other. Wow, that was a very distracting ant.
So Social Security, Medicare.
Social Security and Medicare are about 16% of your income.
Wow.
Yeah. So before you even get to your low tax rate of 10%, your marginal tax rate of 10%, 15%, 25%, 28%, you're already paying about 16%. Now, half of that you don't see because your employer is paying for it.
Okay.
But trust me, you're paying for it because your employer would likely pay you
More.
And then the other half you're seeing. And I mean, it's brilliantly constructed. I mean, some of these things that Congress did were brilliant to get people not thinking about, wait, holy crap, this is crazy.
Right.
Like mandatory withholding. They made it mandatory that your employer has to hold on to your taxes for you. And then that way, tax day is a great day when you get money back. If that didn't exist, that you actually, like self-employed people, had to pay taxes when you filed your return, there'd be no returns filed, okay? And no one would pay, and it would collapse. It would absolutely collapse. If I could do one thing to destroy the IRS, that would be it.
Yeah.
And mandatory withholding. That's all you need to do. No one really would understand what you were doing except a few people. Like, no, you can't do that because we know it's over. So that's where they kind of trick you there, and they trick you by dumping the cost on your employer to make him liable for it, he or she. So that's one of those things. And when people become self-employed, you don't get out of it because you're just self-employed. Okay, you're self-employed, you have to pay both halves.
Oh, crap.
Yeah. And that's where, a lot of people I've known, maybe they've worked under the table, they're saying, all right, Anthony, I want to come clean. I've been doing things. I'm like, all right, what about what you're making? I'm like, all right, I'm making, I'm not making a lot. I'm making, 30, 40 grand a year. I'm like, all right, well, you're going to have to start paying quarterly taxes, and your federal income tax is going to be nothing. And they're like, woohoo! I'm like, but your self-employment is going to be about, you're going to need to come up with, maybe a grand to $2,000 every quarter. I'm not going to do that. And so they're like, no, I'm not going to, there's no way I could pay that. So I'm going to continue working under the table working, doing this,
okay.
doing that. And I'm like, okay, I just want you to know. I'm like, that's fine. Just before you bother, before you file one return, just know what you're going to have to do in order to actually, get this behind you.
Yep.
That self-employment income is what kills the self-employed unless you're making enough over it. Because at some point, you can stop paying the Social Security. That does phase out. The Medicare actually will then trigger back in for passive income if you make over $250,000. That's another topic. But really, it's just the people who are making, the people who are self-employed who aren't making all that much money in the world, that is a flat tax.
Mm-hmm.
Ted Cruz, you wanted 10%. Well, we already have a flat tax of 15.9%. What are you going to do about that? Because that is still out there. So then is your flat tax rate, you're basically going to make it 25.6% or something, It's not the 39.6, that beautiful, wonderful number.
Yep.
But you're going to be hitting people a lot harder than you think, and those people at the lower end. And so that's one of those things that people don't realize is at the lower end, once you start making wages, you're getting hammered. You're better off not doing anything and just taking handouts from the government.
Mm-hmm.
Really until a level where you're making over, or there's, as a single person, I think they've done it, something called a welfare cliff, that it doesn't start to make financial sense until you're going to make over $45,000 a year if you're single, because of the benefits and then your self-employment where you get hammered on it.
Yeah.
And it's the greatest thing that people don't know about. And they're like, oh, we need to raise, we need to raise taxes. Well, you're not paying federal taxes. All of this is irrelevant to you.
Right.
Because there's so many deductions, you don't have to worry about it. But that self-employment that's sticking out there, that's looming out there, that 16% will make a difference to you. Yeah. Then there's some other tax rates. And I just know that people just never get into that. And then it's like, that's the killer. Then every day, somebody is surprised by that.
Mm-hmm.
It's hidden.
Today I'm surprised.
And then there's other taxes that a lot of people won't see. Unemployment taxes.
Okay.
Your employer's paying for that. Depending on what trade you're in, it could be substantial.
Mm-hmm.
And then like in a state like Connecticut, which borrowed money from the federal government to pay unemployment to cover a budget deficit, but they had to pay the money back.
Oof.
But they didn't pay the money back. Then we got hit with a special assessment of, I don't know, $8,000. Just because Connecticut couldn't manage its own finances, and you have to pay it. There's no return. Here it is, employer. Like, oh, we kind of do employee bonuses. Well, guess what's not going into that pool? Yeah. There's $8,000 not going in there. So you're paying for it.
Right.
Employees, you're paying for it. And then other one is workers' comp. Workers' comp is insurance, but it's somewhat of a scam. I mean, I worked in construction years ago, and the goal was, you wanted to get injured enough to enjoy life, but injured, not so injured you can't enjoy life, but injured enough you're able to collect comp. Comp is pretty generous.
Yep.
It's easy to get on. No one's, and you hear stories of private investigators going after people, but that's not the majority.
Do you just need a note from your chiropractor?
Kind of, it's pretty easy to get it. And that's why in construction, that workers' comp is about in Connecticut, it's about 26% of pay.
Wow.
Yeah. So for every $100, you pay $26 for workers' comp.
Right.
And so construction is one of those fields where that gets squeezed every frickin' way.
Yep.
That they have a lot of self-employment tax to pay. They have the unemployment, which is huge, the worker comp, which is huge, and that's why they go under the table. And the problem with being under the table is there's a limit to what you can do. Mm-hmm. You have to kind of keep a low profile. You can't work all the time. Hopefully your spouse has a real job so you can get some benefits there.
Yep.
Because whenever you're going to fill out something, financial affidavit, you're going to show nothing because you're not going to file anything. You just don't file anything. And so that's more and more. And all these people are talking about, we need more taxes. We need to spread the wealth around more. And it's like you're not paying attention to who is getting hit by this the most. The hardest working people out there.
Yep, I was just going to say that.
I mean, I used to swing a hammer. There was a reason why I went back to school.
Yeah.
Screw that.
Yeah.
Screw that. I was like, this is terrible. You want me to move all this stuff? I'm like, I just moved a bunch of stuff yesterday. right?
It's heavy. It's stuff
And
is
if my dream is like, we were talking like, yeah, wouldn't it be great to go on comp? Then we could drink Bass Ale all day. That's how long ago it was, and watch soap operas. That's what we were talking
it was
about.
your lifelong goal.
Right. And like, that's how bad the job is.
Yeah.
That's what I really wanted to do. And then I'm like, all right, well, I have a few credits left. It shouldn't take that long. The lies you tell yourself. So that's why I went back, because it's a horrible job.
Yep.
And the income tax is screwing over these self-employed people so bad. And the self-employment, which really isn't even part of the income tax.
Yeah.
That's the Social Security.
And so many people, that's their dream. I want to be self-employed. I don't want to have a boss I have to talk to, and then to find out that this is what you're dealing with.
Oh, and then, here's the other thing, too. When you're self-employed, what's nice is when you lose your business or whatever, you don't get unemployment.
Oh, that's true. Oh, that sucks.
Right. And so it just strikes me so odd that you got to have unemployment. You know, these unemployed people, we have to really be concerned about that. We need to extend our unemployment. We need to.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what about the self-employed who lost a contract?
Oh.
Wow.
I think I'm just going to keep my job. There's
nothing for
I'm going to keep
you.
working for the man.
There's just simply nothing
I've
for you.
decided that working for the man isn't that bad.
And that's what that's one of the things that you have to understand, that income tax is designed to consolidate energy. Okay. As any business doesn't want to have competition. So what you do is you create a barrier to entry for someone to make that leap from small self-employed to an employer, because once he's an employer, he's your competition. So you create all these barriers to entry, which make it really, really hard to spring to the next level, because there are construction companies that make a lot of money.
Oh, sure.
They make, they have a bunch of employees, they're able to handle the compliance costs. Well, that's why it's great for them. There's like two other people who can bid that are probably their friends. No one else can. All these guys who all know the exact same things, well, we'll just hire him as a sub, but never competition. And so that's sort of the gaming of the system. That is hard to make that leap from small to big, because the big doesn't want you there.
Got it. All right. So now we know the other tax brackets we should care about. Next, I want to talk about, Anthony, with tax brackets. What is being taxed? What are they taxing? We'll talk about that right after this on Parental Advisory. And my computer froze again. She's not being friendly today. I apologize.
Yeah.
So we are live back here on Parental Advisory.
Oh, we don't have our break?
No, the break, she just won't play.
She's
being
You know what? I think
sticky today.
She heard about the secret taxes. She heard about, what the frick? 16%?
This makes no sense.
I had dreams.
39.6.
I was going to be somebody. No, I better just stay here.
All right. So tax brackets. What are you taxing?
What you are taxing, and the IRS, there's the Supreme Court decision about what exactly is taxable income. And it's some stupid definition, and I'm not going to get into it because it's really stupid and it drives me nuts, and I've heard it too many times. Essentially, what they're taxing is property that you came into possession in a certain year.
Okay.
Okay? Because that's really, and I think that's really the way they do it. They say it's an accession to wealth that clearly realize that you have complete dominion over, and it's really stupid, and it's not even true.
Yes.
But it's written that way to hide you from what they're really doing. It's essentially a property tax, but not of all your property. Property that you just got this year.
Okay.
Okay? And that's why it's important to notice, because as I was saying, the income tax is used as a weapon by entrenched interests to keep the little guy down.
Yes.
Because it's hard to have a lot of property if every year you have to give a lot of property away. And so I think that's the focus on what we really should think about this as. It's not an income tax, because there's some income that you don't have to pay crap on.
Oh, that's true.
You don't pay taxes on that. And then there's some income that gets taxed at a different rate. And then there's some income that doesn't get taxed on self-employment income. I didn't tell you that.
No.
Yeah. The only thing that gets self-employment or your employment taxes is employment wages.
Oh.
So if you don't have to work, that is, you get money for not working, guess what you don't have to pay?
Right.
That's 16%. Kind of obnoxious, huh?
Very obnoxious.
Right. So the people who, I guess, need it the least don't have to pay it. Isn't that interesting? But by the way, before we go crazy saying that I want to tax people at a higher rate or do a property tax or wealth tax, no. And I think this is something that we see come up all the time, that the income tax and people get burned with this all the time, that they're using the income tax to create a trap, to create a ditch for their neighbor to fall into. Okay. If you create a ditch, you are more likely to fall into that.
Yeah, I probably would.
Yeah. It's just like, you're going to forget, I put that there. Dang it. And so this is what we have. People keep on, people like, oh man, I just not have the money that I had. I was hoping I'd be doing a little bit better. I really want to have that endless pool, the 17-footer.
Yes.
The 11-footer just isn't going to, that's an infinity pool, which would be next to your endless pool.
Yes.
Endless pools for labs, infinity pools just to look good.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
Yep.
And I was thinking you go with a separate hot tub too, because you don't want to, one really shouldn't be doing all the job, just little 3. And by the way, I went to a gas pump the other day that only had 93 and 87, but my car takes 89, so I was outraged. Very off topic. That's we're having a little bit of fun about our previous podcast on the joke that is the taxpayer bill of rights. So if you listen to that, well, hopefully that will be your incentive to actually listen to it, because it is really funny.
It is, and the IRS just keeps giving us more and more jokes that they created on their own. We don't have to do any work.
I know. On Friday we have identity theft coming up.
Yep.
That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes.
The identity theft and the billions of dollars you could do. And my little scam where I could just, if I want to check out, I have my exit strategy. I won't go into all the details on that one on Friday, but that is coming up. Back to what we're talking about here, which is taxes.
Brexit.
Tax.
I think we have a show about taxes.
39.6.
The neighbor, when you built your
so
you
people
dug your
are
ditch.
wondering, I should be doing better. You know what we need to do is we need to tax the rich, whoever they are, at a higher rate. So they create a bigger trap.
Yep.
Guess who falls into it? You did
do.
again. And people do the same thing again and again. And it just amazes me that people have a total misapprehension of what their financial circumstances are, what their life circumstances are. So many people think they're rich because they made $1 million in a year. So many.
I would definitely be rich.
You think you would be?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, This is my definition of rich.
Okay.
How much money do you get by sitting on your ass?
Oh, I don't get any.
Yeah. That's rich. You get money and if you get money because you sold something off, and that's usually when you look at, with the top 1%, they were the 1% for that 1 year. Out of all those years of your life, that was the year that somebody came in with a check to buy something of theirs. They bought a business.
Yep.
Well, you just sold that business. You don't have that business anymore. So you got exactly what it was worth. So you didn't really get anything you didn't have already. Right. Except a taxable event. Yay. So that's where it's like you're not as rich as you think you are. And that's, people who have their big payday. You're not and then also how many, we've helped over 2,000, we're probably up to 3,000 people with tax problems. And so many of them, when you look at previous years, they're like, I joke like, so you probably thought you're pretty rich. Like, yep. So you never thought this would probably happen to you. I'm like, nope. And that's always the hardest part is the slide down. Because you had a taste of what it's like to live with a little bit
lifestyle.
Right. And now, you mean you don't get a nanny? Oh. You mean you don't get private school?
Oh.
You mean you...
I have to put 87 octane in
87?
my STI? I have to sell my STI?
Maybe you'd have to get rid of one of your jet skis, at least one. There it means you have to start... You can't get your hair done every week. You don't get to go to your vacations that you got.
But
really,
I love my vacation.
I mean, Vail is just beautiful this time of year.
It really is.
It really is. It's just special, magical. You don't get to travel. And so you're spending money you really don't have on the way down. And so because you're thinking, it'll come back. And no one's quite getting in. Now you're panicking because all these people in your life are used to this money being there and it's gone. Because you made the mistake of believing this nonsense, believing this complete crap of when people say the richest 1% and the richest 2%. Okay, because the richest 1% don't pay taxes.
Yeah.
All right, wherever they are, whoever they are, they don't know. They have their ways, and we're going to talk about those. Well, we already did.
Yeah.
We heard a friend Bill Loftus on a couple weeks ago about how not to pay taxes.
Yeah.
Just be really rich be really rich and follow our advice.
Yep.
That's what you need. But if you're working, you're always taxed at the worst possible rates, and you're taxed, and you also get that employment tax on at least part of your income.
Yep.
And you also lose so many of the deductions. What they do is they also take away deductions. Well, I know if you're the child care credit, you get that, and you get you paid that much in child care. Well, if you make this much, we'll allow you to deduct the expense. But now that you're too rich, we're not going to let you take it. You made too much money.
Really?
Yeah, and I mean, I've experienced this. For 10 years, I made, I was dead broke, and thanks to you, you're the only reason. You and Kevin are pretty much the only reason I was able to live during law school and get a beer. Thanks for the beer. I had no money.
Yep.
And then starting my own business, I had no money, and then I was watching everything change, and I'm like, well, how can I be rich if I have debt? Mm-hmm. This doesn't make sense. And the tax code just punishes you and gets people distracted, that it punishes people who work for a living.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, but I'm not saying that we should punish people who don't. I'm just saying let's not build traps for each other to fall into. Let's not fall for the game.
Yep.
Everybody is getting hammered by this thing. Everybody is hurting. And just, that, and I think my frustration is that my life is pretty much that dream where you see a disaster coming towards someone and where you can't talk.
Oh, yeah.
And you're just screaming and no words are coming out.
Yep.
That's in my entire life because I've seen enough of it. I've seen enough people lose everything because of the IRS. Something goes wrong in their life. Okay, that's bad. And then the IRS is compounding the problem. And then their reaction to it makes it worse.
Yep.
They're not taking it seriously. You can deal with the IRS. You can. But you have to understand, this is your number one threat in your life. And you don't fuck around.
Mm-hmm.
That was at
11:50.
You don't shut up around.
Yeah, that's a good point.
They don't. People are, and people are just very unaware of what can happen. That, and how they classify rich is what you come into in 1 year. Mm-hmm. Well, why don't we start taking averages?
Right.
Because, okay, so I'm at, the richest whatever percent of taxpayers now,
Yep.
richest, which I don't believe at all. I'm like, no, that's not true at all.
Right.
Well, can we take an average of my years? Because those years I didn't pay anything, but I would be better off paying the average tax,
right,
as opposed to being dumped, whereas the more you get, it gets progressively higher and higher. So I pay because if your pay is lumped together in certain years, that's where you get hammered the hardest. So you're just sort of better, like kind of hanging low, and you're doing better, or just going off the radar completely.
I'd like to be average. I
Just
don't want to be successful.
Average, right? I know, right? And
Who's ever said that?
And that's always one of the things that bothers me most about the tax code is that I know so many people, so many great imaginative people, and I guess today I'm talking mostly about people in the trades.
Yep.
Because they used to, they can make decent money, and a lot of them work so hard, and they do great work, and take such pride. And they have a tax system that absolutely abuses them and then gets them to think small. Because all these guys have big dreams. That's what they're thinking like, yeah, I want to, it'd be great to work on this project, do that. But that tax code's right there because they know the second they make a move, no, you can't. Because now you created attention. And so you're stealing humanity away from somebody. Mm-hmm. You're stealing their opportunity. And that's what people don't see. They don't see the whole thing. People find it far too easy to talk about taxes when they know nothing about it but their own life. And I would just say, why don't you do this? Work at a low-income tax clinic. Volunteer once. Because I'll tell you this, that low-income tax clinic, that person you're going to look like, wait a second, if you're at a tax clinic, you're low income, income tax is based on how much you make. Mm-hmm. Well, why are you here?
Yeah.
Wait a second. Wait, you shouldn't be here. No, you shouldn't owe anything. Yet they do, because at some point they did. They had that windfall, that few great years. Then they get a disability. Oh, here's one. This is just friggin' cute. Guy's doing pretty good. He's, let me just make up his thing to hide his identity a little bit here. He's a mason in Port Chester, New York. Okay. And he's doing pretty good, working his ass off, though. He's got a crew, and then he's going camping, and let's just say Adirondacks. And it's a public campground, and there's a disturbance. There's some kids getting a little mouthy. And he goes to cool everything down. Hey, what's going on here? It's a family thing. Kids are a little drunk. Kids kick the living crap out of him. Knock him senseless. The guy's in the hospital for 2 weeks with traumatic brain injury.
Jesus.
He gets a disability check that's pennies. And now the IRS is saying, yeah, we want to collect from you all this money you owe. You didn't pay these employee payroll taxes. Your entire life was destroyed.
Right.
Because you were doing the right thing, trying to help people.
Yep.
And now the IRS is coming to get you. And it's like, well, you owe all this money. And it's like, well, and now we were able to move some things around because normally in that case, you're like, well, this is where an offer and compromise would work. You have nothing.
Yep.
Well, this guy had assets. So all those assets that he needed to sell to pay for his care.
Yep.
That we were able to protect that, but we kind of know a little bit more than the average bear. The regular person going in unarmed, like, well, the IRS couldn't totally fuck me over, could they?
Yes, they could.
Yeah, it's like they wouldn't know to say, well, how do you protect this from the IRS grabbing it? Because this is all you have. You can't work anymore. You're done. It's all over for you. And that's where this is where my passion comes from, because there is a way to help somebody like that, but you got to be sharper than the IRS, and you got to see what's really going on.
Yep. It's like the IRS is this underlying evil current that nobody thinks about or looks at. The more I find out, the more it's like it's affecting everything, and no one is acknowledging it.
That's a great analogy. That on the surface, it looks somewhat tolerable.
Yeah.
But and I think the second you go like an inch deep, you're like, what the hell was that?
Sharks, I think I saw. I'm just going to stay up.
Oh my God, yeah.
No,
and that's exactly like, it's because it's so ubiquitous, you think it's safe.
It's the government.
It's the government. It's just the government's the name for the things we do together.
Yeah,
right.
They have my best interest at heart.
They're never going to do that.
Justice, equality.
Right. They're people just like me. They would never screw me over because their supervisor told them to. They would never.
No.
They would never screw me over. So I think that's a great way to look at it. And it can be dealt with. Yep. I mean, the thing is it can so be dealt with if you know what you're dealing with.
Yes.
If you know it's dangerous, people have done some incredible things, but they didn't get there by saying, we're going to go to the moon. I'm pretty sure it's like flying around Merida Markham Airport.
Yeah.
Well, KMMK.
Just go a little higher.
Go a little higher. We're going to get in there. We'll probably have to have some extra snacks. Be a little longer.
Yep.
And the radiation, no. It's just some sunscreen. Right?
SPF 100 they make
100,
now.
right.
Just spray that on.
That'll stop the cosmic rays.
Perfect.
Stuff like that.
There's your plan.
So I think that's the thing. It's like you're able to do incredible things, but you have to assess the risk you're going up against. And for anybody, the risk that they have in their life is this IRS.
Yep.
It is 100% the IRS. And I think one of the greatest, here's proof positive. I hope today we showed you just how misleading tax brackets are, that it's not what you think, because the biggest bracket out there for most people isn't even talked about, isn't even mentioned. And then, so that's what I think.
Yeah. And then I think
today.
Tomorrow, when we're broadcasting live again tomorrow at 11 a.m., we'll continue to talk about tax brackets. And what I'm interested in hearing is some of these hypotheticals that you guys are coming up with.
Yeah, I have my tax team is working on it right now.
Yep.
We went over some typical hypotheticals we use. We didn't want to use any of our actual client stuff.
Yep.
But we used various living situations, typical things that we find from people around the country about what they're paying. Oh, I didn't have anyone do anything, any expats, so I might run.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think we're going to have. We'll throw in an expat one too, just to see how the foreign tax credit works and some of that works.
Yep.
And some of the benefits of living overseas.
Yep.
So I'll add that. So I think we're going to run some real hypotheticals that will probably be. One of these is probably going to be like yours, and then you also can see why someone like Bill Gates, someone like Warren Buffett, someone like George Soros would love for the income tax to be higher, because it takes you out from being their competition.
Ooh, all right. So tune in tomorrow right here on Parental Advisory live at 11 a.m. Thanks for joining us. Let's see if my computer's done being a bitch. Yay! Thanks for joining Parental Advisory, hosted by Anthony Parent, produced by Claudine Gindel, that's me, engineered by Chris Chen. For more podcasts, visit our website at parentaladvisoryshow.com and like us on Facebook to submit story ideas. We'd like to thank our sponsors, IRSMedic.com, the law offices of Parent, and Wynn, LLP, real tax attorneys for tough tax problems.